Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. Going to be going over the Afuris, which is the newest pistol. Got released, or the Afuris Prime got released alongside Baruch Prime. Just going to be building one up, starting with basic logic and going up into several tiers of builds, and go over each build set. Going to start out with very basic, beginner friendly, say your MR4, MR5. And then we'll work our way up into a frame build where we're dealing with arcanes and uh, frame buffs, and then mods on the frame itself, dealing with a more well-rounded build, if you will. So for very basic stuff, we're gonna do base damage, multi-shot, crit chance, crit damage, fire rate, and looking at the weapon, you'll notice that the crit chance of the weapon isn't that good. The status chance is actually pretty high, so we're going to build to try to take advantage of that. Just looking at the weapon's IPS distribution, it is heavily weighted for puncture, so we know that this weapon is going to do better against Grineer units. So the Grineer weakness, the element that the Grineer's weak against is corrosive. We're going to do 60/60s. You should have Scorch. And if not, just keep playing the game. It's easily farmable. Jolt is a barrel item. And if you don't have that, just do a 90 mod, right? Next, to take more advantage of the status, we're going to do Heated Charge. So pretty basic build, not dealing with arcanes. If you are just using this for MR fodder and you don't want to do an Exilus, just by process of elimination, that's your pistol ammo mutation spot. This is going to be a pretty weak weapon, but still usable for star chart. Sorry. I modded for radiation, and that's not right. Okay, so corrosive, we're square no. So heat would go down here. This is going to be a pretty weak weapon, but as far as star chart is concerned, this is going to get you through fair and square. So this would be a beginner-friendly build. You would want this build if you're just getting started out. Okay, now let's go on to the next tier. This is going to be a steel path build. I'm going to assume, we won't talk about arcanes yet, but I'm going to assume you've done arbitrations and you have all the galvanized mods. And for this, we'll do the Prime Target Cracker and Prime Pistol Gambit. If you don't have one of these, well, then you can't equip it. Just equip the other one, right? The next one is going to be Galvanized Shot. And Lethal Torrent for fire rate. And I'm going to do a Prime Pistol Ammo mutation. But again, if you don't have that, just equip what you want. The Weapon Exilus mods are farmable. Again, this is going to be a Steel Path build, so I'm going to assume you've done like Requiem Relics. So these are farmable. That being said, if you are free to play, God bless you if you are, I would not say this weapon is worth the former required for a Weapon Exilus mod. So do with that knowledge what you will. That being said, is it worth a catalyst, considering they're as easily farmable as they are? Because you can do Nightwave and get a catalyst, right? I would say this is easily worth a a arcane slot to mess around with. It's definitely good fun. Um, so anyway, let's keep going. It's still going to be a corrosive build. And just to balance it out because of the polarity. So this is going to be a really basic corrosive build. It's going to be using the galvanized shot, which is going to help us out because we have 4 statuses on the weapon, and you're going to end up RNGing them. But still, this is a very upfront damage. And let's actually show what the build for this is, or show what the damage for this is. Some 190 exos, you're not going to see these guys ever. So the damage isn't too bad. That being said, it is a little bullet hosey. We don't have now. Okay, so we're gonna go up into a later game steel path build, and a lot of these mods are to taste. But let's equip our core mods. Very basic core mods. It is a status weapon, so we're going to work with that. Now the last 4, hold on, and ammo mutation. Let's go over the arcane choice. If you do not use Deadhead, it's personal choice, right? But that being said, if you noticed when I was shooting, there was a slight wobble because of the recoil. But that being said, the recoil wasn't that bad. And because we're doing like raw damage builds, Deadhead is actually a good option here. If you personally want to do a merciless build, I find them a little bit of a hassle to keep up. And that being said, the reload on the weapon is fairly fast as is. So with the arcane secondary merciless and the plus 30% reload speed, it brings us down to less than a second. But we were only 1.2 to start with. So if you're okay with the condition of having to get headshots, I'm using Deadhead on this just for a trash mob. Just blast them, shoot other stuff, trash mob every 20 seconds. It's really quick to charge, and I don't mind it. Okay. So we're going to keep with the same theory. Lethal Torrent. We're going to do Corrosive again. Again, pretty basic. Actually, we will do this. Okay. So we start getting into, like, personal flair, right? We're going with Deadhead, so we're going to be getting headshots. So this time, we're going to mod more crit damage. And this is more personal taste, and it's going to lead into the next build and then the build after. If you want to abuse the status more, you can do 2 60/60s for corrosive, and then a primed heated charge. And at lower levels, and I mean this like lower levels even in Steel Path, you will still be able to kill with the raw damage. Just because the heat and corrosive are so close and you're not entirely relying on the dot to do damage, it's going to be more there for the raw damage increase. But if you are even thinking about doing like an hour into a survival on the Steel Path, don't go this build. And it's because we have other things to consider in the chase for damage. So let's see what the damage is. We're getting 1100s. It's all about the same. Heat is ticking for 2k. Got a 94 heat. Alright, that one was 9400. 9800. We've got viral from the Panzer, which we're going to be running all the time. 2700. 8k. The alpha damage is now up to 32k. So the raw damage is definitely taking over with this build. So the heat would be more for like the armor shred, the additional armor shred. And a bit of a dot that's going to get boosted by the viral from the Panzer and the armor shred from corrosive, right? So then you have the dot that's got a heavy weight on, so it's not going to proc all the time. You're going to be pretty evenly proccing corrosive heat. But when it does proc, those heat ticks are going to be fairly juicy, considering what you've got on the weapon. So how do we escalate this further? Okay. Because this, a lot of people would look at this build and go, okay, it's done, right? Like, this would be amazing for star chart stuff. Considering most of these mods you wouldn't be using on the star chart. But even Steel Path, this would be amazing for it. So say you wanted to scale it more, right? We would keep Deadhead, and we would start to incorporate things like Warframe abilities. So let's get rid of our dot, and we're actually going to go a viral build. And we are going to throw as much raw damage on as possible. But because we're going a very viral build, we're going to do galvanized crosshairs. Okay. So more crit. We're going for headshots. Now we have added some difficulty on our playing for potential benefit of additional damage. Okay. So this is going to give us more damage. I think we're barely going to get into oranges. If we do, it's super minute. But it is going to give us a significant boost in crit chance. I think we're at like 20% or something. But either way, an orange is an orange, right? So we've got the deadhead bonus. We've obviously got the base damage increase. Galvanized shot. We're going to RNG up to 4 statuses just off this weapon. And then we're going to have viral on the Panzer. And just sort of keep in mind this build setup. This build setup is incredibly potent regardless of the weapon at most forms of content. If you can incorporate an armor strip. So like your Ash armor strip, Caliban. I even have Steinax's Theros Strike helmethed onto this Baruch build right now. And I'm going to show you the damage, because it is a significant jump. But if you're messing around with a weapon and it's like, it's just for whatever reason you focus in on it, I get it. I do it too. But you really want this weapon to work. That build setup will work on anything, and it will kill anything. And it will be an excellent baseline to actually killing Garnier. So we got our strip. Alright, the damage is up to 55k. Now we're at 100k, 113, 106. And it's just a raw damage build. This works on everything. It's not a big brain build. So, okay, so a little over 100k. Not a big deal. So at this point, this is a pretty generic build. How do we get more damage? Well, we're actually double stacked on a stat here. 2 stats, actually. Lethal Torrent is giving us a bit of multi-shot. We can equip, and I'm going to unequip the Exilus mod for now. I'm going to unequip Lethal Torrent, and we're going to go with a faction mod. Where Lethal Torrent, yes, was giving us fire rate, but if you noticed when we were shooting stuff, it was only taking a bullet or 2. We don't need the full bullet hose to kill something. And that being said, keep in mind, when I was shooting stuff, it was only 1 bullet, and because the viral was the only status on the enemy, there was only 1 direct damage bonus on this. If we were to continue shooting it, our damage would almost quadruple. So, though you only saw 100k, if I need to kill something, those shots will go up to 400k, 500k. Now that we've added in a primed expel Grineer, it's another 50% on top of it once everything gets bullet hosed together, right? So our damage has gone way up. Well, what do we do? And this is like really into excessive amounts of building. Where you really want to do an Afuris build for some reason. If you really want to get this going, you could do swap out Deep Freeze for Frostbite, because viral status is viral status, but more importantly, it would give you your primed pistol ammo mutation back, which you kind of need with this weapon. You burn through some ammo. And more importantly, the ammo max, or the maximum amount of ammo, is like 400. So if you're bullet hosing stuff, you kind of need those pickups to kick when they kick, right? And more importantly, a single ammo pickup will give you more than a full magazine now, right? Or you will almost pick up, sorry, I misspoke. This doesn't give you bonus. That's the aura. Convert primary ammo pickups to 90%, 92% of ammo pickup. So this is going to double your total ammo pickup as you run through a mission. That benefits this because you're going to be turning primary ammo pickups into secondary with 92% efficiency. There, better. That's more accurate. But it's basically going to double your pickup, right? Because you're picking up 2 things for this now. So, where do we get our attack speed back? Right? Well, there's 2 methods. Right now I have Arcane Strike on this guy. We can go over to Velocity. But this requires you to have the Arcane. So we're scaling the build again, adding requirements that aren't easy to get. You have to either whale for this, or you gotta farm it from Eidolons. But this will further increase our damage. And start adding stuff onto this. Onto the frame itself that will benefit the pistol while making the frame less effective, as if I had like Arcane Energize and maybe like Grace here, or Arcane Energize and like a defensive Arcane. So we're sacrificing stuff on the frame to further boost the damage itself on the weapon. And again, we're going to be using full strip. And let's see what that damage is. So the number that we were getting before was, I think it was like right around 100, right? Alright, we are now at 122. Okay, 150. There you go. 188 or 181, 159, 181, 154. Alright, now we just need one bullet to kill them. And we've got a viral status that's helping us out a ton on those. But you saw in the ones where they didn't have viral on it, it was like 40 to 50k on the triple shot, where it fired like multiple bullets. It was like 40 to 50k like burst fire essentially, right? So how do we do even more? Now we're going to start getting into like niche mods where you're really sacrificing the build because for some reason you really want this weapon to do damage. Was it the Furax? There is an amalgam mod for the Furax. Amalgam Furax body count. This mod got changed recently. This is a Ropalolist sentient mod. It got changed from being like a mini firestorm, where it added range. I think it said added range to specialized launchers or something like that. It was radius on explosion. It was like firestorm. It was additive, or it was additive compared to firestorm, but it scaled off the base, and then both of them got added together, right? With Prime Firestorm and Firestorm. Now, it's 45% fire rate for secondary weapons. So it's like a mini velocity. So now we've added one arcane onto the frame. Now we're sacrificing a melee to further boost the secondary. So it's at 18.13. Let's see if that actually lives updates. Yeah, it does. So it goes from 12.5 to 18.13, 18.13. And then we have velocity on top of it. So our damage has gone up again. And let's see how bullet hosey this is. Oh, wrong one. Very bullet hosey. Alright, good enough. Now we've been stacking fire rate, right? And that's more of a proof of concept. Can we do better? Okay, so one of the things we can do, and I'm actually going to take velocity off of here because we are getting some fire rate from the amalgam mod, is I'm actually going to add more crit damage, or crit chance. And we're going to go with an Avenger build. And one of the things we're also going to do, and now we're swapping, going with the same philosophy, sacrifice another part of the build to boost this one. So we're going to be focusing on the pistols. One of the things we can do is add something like Vigorous Swap, which is plus 165% damage for 3 seconds. You just have to sort of figure it out, like how to equip it. Just swap constantly. It's conditional, but this is like incredibly potent with like very hard-hitting weapons. Which hopefully, if we do this right, this will be one. And let's go to Aura. We need Combat Discipline. Rank 1, because we don't want to die. The health drain. Losing health by killing an enemy from Combat Discipline can trigger Avenger. And we are going to regularly swap back and forth to keep this buff active. The philosophy behind this is that whatever weapon you're killing with, so in this case it's the Afuris Prime, right? You would then equip something like a magnetic comb as like a primer. So this is more important for like disruptions, right? Where you're like you have one tough enemy to kill, you Magnus lockdown it, either strip it with an arrow, or in this case, I would use Theros Strike because I've helmeted on. You would primer something with the comb, and then you would swap to the weapon that you want to do damage with. In which case, you would prime with the comb, and it would be like a magnetic comb with like corrosive, like a bunch of status that you wouldn't have anywhere else in the build. So viral's on the weapon, the enemy doesn't have armor. So you would just throw a bunch of random crap on there. As long as it doesn't interfere with the build, it doesn't matter, right? So just as much status as you can get. So you would primer with the comb, swap to your pistol, which would trigger Vigorous swap, and then you would unload on it and do a ton of damage to it. And as you were running around in the window, you would be killing stuff because Avenger lasts for 12 seconds, right? So as you're running up to the Demolist, you would be killing stuff, keeping the Avenger charged, and then real quick you would dash, lock down the Demolist with your primary out, prime it, and then swap, and you would have to do it in the period of like 10 seconds, right? But for the 3 seconds that Vigorous swap is up, you would swap to the pistol, and you would literally just fire at it for 3 seconds for the bonus. And the bonus is pretty easy to see. So we have the 3 icons up here. It's Gladiator Weeping. I'm going to swap to pistol. There you go, 165. So now let's see where this damage lands us. Alright, we're over 210 now. Now we're at 340. $273 red, 290, or sorry, 273 orange. Yellows are almost 200k. Got a 164 there. 244 yellow, 164 yellow, primed a bit, so we got some extra statuses on there. So the only other way you could really get more damage out of this weapon, and it gets so sweaty after this, like this is a pretty routine skill rotation, right? Lockdown, strip, prime, hit him with the weapon that's designed to kill, right? This is a pretty routine skill rotation nowadays. So what else do we have? We've got Void Strike. And it's kind of a meme. I've never seen anybody use this, but you would actually use this if you're running really garbage weapons. And I don't, like, listen, the Afuris isn't that good, but I wouldn't call it garbage either. Actually, let me load in a Demolist. And I will turn y'all's audio down. Let's see, let me find a Vernier 1. Hold on. Okay. So the skill rotation is going to be lockdown, strip, prime. Hold on. It's going to be lockdown, void strike, strip, prime, and then kill with the pistol. So I need to have the primary up. That did not fix the cooldown on that. The downside to it is that the operator ability gets put down on a 30-second cooldown. But you can get some pretty nutty numbers out of stuff using this. It's essentially trying to multiply your damage by 10. Right, so let's take a quick peek at the damage. 546. So, okay. So it's going to be lockdown. Here I would press 1. I would primer, strip, and then I'd shoot with the pistol, right? Let me make sure I got everything. So you're running around with the primer out. And that would be your kill combo. Obviously, when you get into the rhythm of it, that goes significantly faster. But that would allow almost anything to do level cap. This setup, or an Void Strike, you're going to have to manage your energy pretty well, so you would have to have a pretty safe setup for it. But that combo can turn anything into a pretty reasonable monster, right? But that would be like a full scale the Afuris, like an obscenely, like, and even on top of it, we didn't even have Avenger because there was one thing out there. So imagine, I didn't even see what the numbers were. It died in like 2 shots, and I didn't have any stacks. So imagine that with multi-shot and stacks on the arcane. That was literally just raw weapon damage. So anyway, this would be an example of like a completely power crept where everything gets dumped into the pistol doing damage. That would be the combo, and obviously it requires a great deal of stuff. You have to have a lot of the game 100%ed. So let me just say, like the Afuris is sort of like a closing thing. The farm this up. Do not plot for this. Okay, don't plot for this. It's not bad because of the IPS distribution. This is actually pretty solid against Grenier. So any of you that are gonna farm this up and are doing Steel Path, just throw like a couple of V's into it, right? Just throw a couple of V's into it if you're gonna do like Forma into this, and just go for like a comfy build. Corrosive Heat with Lethal Torrent. So let's get rid of all of this. Yeah, Corrosive Heat with Lethal Torrent. I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the correct answer against Grenier. Against like Corpus, Magnetic Toxin. Because you've already got the V's set up. But this is going to work way better against Grenier. And it's just a comfy little build. If you want to run Merciless, you can. I find the stacks a little annoying to keep up, and I'm willing to get headshots to keep Deadhead triggered to make up the difference. So I showed you Nubro 100%. That build scaled all the way up. And you saw it get like 400Ks on orange crits. And it's still a bullet hose weapon. I don't think this is worthy of like a level cap meme build. Like actually taking it to level cap. Like it's not like the Mark 1 Bratton or the Mark 1 Furus, right? I just don't think this is worth that kind of a meme. Because they're fine, right? Like the status chance is or the crit chance is 46%. The crit multiplier is 4.2, and the status chance is 90% with this build. For the love of God, go with a dot build, right? Because especially since it has enough raw damage, you're still going to be getting headshots on weak enemies. You know what I mean? So, anyway, easy peasy. And that viral build I did. This one if you're just trying to bop something, if you really want to min-max... Oh, I had a 60. Hold on. Cold. And even then, there would be an argument for Ice Storm, right? Because we don't really need the status. We're going to bullet hose and get it anyway. You could go this to get that magazine up. But this build here, provided you can get fire rate somewhere else, and every single one of you that have done the Rupololist, or however you pronounce that, and have that Furax mod, every single one of your pistols can be doing, was it 40 to 60% higher fire rate? 45% fire rate. So there you go. Every single one of your pistols can use this mod, and it's just free fire rate. So obviously remember, if you're using this for whatever reason, it could interfere with any builds that you have that are using like the impact to slash mod, right? Because it calculates the fire rate with it. So this would be an example of like a fully scaled version. And then you could potentially do the Vigorous swap with velocity. You also have, as an option, this one. On reload, a 60% chance for 150 damage to pistols for 24 seconds. To be honest, this is kind of shit nowadays. You could do this. You could also do Pistolier. But getting the headshot kill is kind of difficult because you want the damage earlier. So triggering this before you have stacks is going to be a pain in the butt. So don't build around this, but if you can pull it off on a pistol and you don't need your arcane slots, I don't see why you couldn't potentially use this. It's a good meme. But velocity is the go-to. Awakening, if you have enough fire rate. If you can't use velocity because you have enough fire rate and magazine issues, then you can default to awakening. But the first pick is clearly velocity, right? So if you don't want to use velocity because you're getting fire rate somewhere else where the pistol is already strong in fire rate and you don't want to overdo it, you can do awakening also for chance to on reload to get base damage. It's just next best, right? And Pistolier, if you can regularly get headshot kills, this is more your play style, how accurate you are with headshots. If you know you can proc this, well, the world is your oyster with this arcane, right? But you gotta know you can proc this. And that's more relevant to like console players, right? Or people playing on PC but using controllers, you know what I mean? But you got to know skill level wise that you can regularly proc this. And it's just a bit of a hassle. But if you're running a deadhead build anyway, this is free real estate. So there you go. The Afuris successfully boosted up to, I think it was like 450k on an orange crit was the highest we got up to, but we got up to easily 200ks. So for meme builds, for your consideration, you can definitely scale this up. I've been hearing from a lot of people talking about how garbage stuff is, and I'm gonna start explaining like how stuff is strong and obviously giving alternatives. I gave like 6 builds or something like that. But anyways, that's how you would scale this weapon. And to be honest, this build it's an older build. Like this isn't something I came up with. but this build works on anything that has like a little bit of crit chance and even a little bit of status chance. If it's just kind of a mid weapon, this can get it over the hump if you offload the fire rate. If you're not using melee and you really want to use the secondary because you enjoy it, like I love the way this looks, I love the way it sounds, I love the way it aims, I love its fire rate, I love the reload, but the damage just isn't there. So I've actually been running this a bit. You know what I mean? Like if it does a bunch of other things right and it just doesn't have the damage to really get over the hump, to make it like a monster, right? And DE's been doing a pretty good job of like keeping the power creep release under control. But that being said, like the same weapons that are power crept are still power crept, right? Like all the Zeraman weapons are the meta, and almost regardless of whatever they're doing. Like you can run a Latum and do a level cap. How do I know that? Because I've done one. Uh, rank 5 liches getting 2 tapped or 1 tapped. They're just incredibly strong. So this would help out a little bit in bringing this up to par, but it starts adding conditions. Like instead of like Deadhead, for example, instead of just killing an enemy, you have to kill them with a headshot. So the more conditions you add, the more damage you can potentially do. And it would be wise to get comfortable with a play style that, like, as you play and you're sort of like, if you want something to do, if you're one of those people that's kind of in my category, I have a standard play style that is very comfy to me. But if I'm doing like higher tier content, I have a play style that sometimes I practice, but every now and then, like I get the itch to do a level cap on like a disruption, right? It's not really my bread and butter, but every now and then I get the itch to do one. And I also have a play style like with what you saw with the Magus Lockdown, Void Strike, Prime, and as I'm swapping strip and then hit it, it's been a while since I've done a level cap disruption. But that was my personal combo for boosting the piss out of my damage to be able to mow something down with almost no care whatsoever in what my weapon was. So my setup for it is something I'm comfortable with. I like the APM behind it. But for me, that was the playstyle I like. I would suggest for everybody here, if you haven't already, to figure out a playstyle and get a bonus to a weapon that you're using onto each part of your build, if you can. So have a primer that is a primary and a secondary, and have like a damage dealing weapon that's like a primary and a secondary. So you can swap back and forth. And more importantly, if you're testing a weapon or you really enjoy a specific weapon, until you get into the rhythm of being able to stay alive where everything can one-shot you, it's good to have something that you're familiar with. So say you have like a new pistol and you want to level cap with it. You would go with a very familiar primary and melee. Your first couple of times, say you have a primary that you want to level cap with, you would then go with the super comfortable primer secondary. So the only thing that's new, your first couple of level caps, the only thing that's new is the single weapon. So you would have like a kill combo where you would set something up. And everybody should like research and figure out how it is. But basically, it's just figuring out your personal combo, how you enjoy it, and the more things you can incorporate into it, the stronger it gets. And to be honest, for me, this is about as complicated as I'm willing to get. So the combo's pretty quick, and I'll show you again if you want to borrow mine. Is say the enemy's over here. You would lock down, primer, strip, and there you go. And if I practiced it, I could get that sucker to pop. But Void Strike boosts my damage. The swap between the primer and the secondary boosts my damage. As I'm running toward the Demolist, I'm keeping my stacks up. I'm keeping Avenger procced. So it's I can get it down pretty fast to where it's like half a second, right? So it is what it is. Figure out what you enjoy. The combos are pretty good. There's a bunch of them. The Inaru Focus School has a really nice strip on it. But for some of the newer people in the Clan on Alliance, you might not have that Focus School unlocked, or maybe the node isn't maxed out all the way, which is fine. Listen, everybody had to do focus at one point and another, right? So just use what you got. But even Naramon, or what am I using? Matarai. This is a common one. It's not as important as it used to be. This is more of a Zeraman thing now, because Void Strike is how you can like really blow up angels. It's kind of hilarious. But this applies to your frame. It applies to your weapon damage, and you got an 8-second window. So you're going to want to use it on your primary and quickly swap over to your secondary in the period of 8 seconds. And when you slop everything together and like you pre-charge abilities, and you swap in the middle of firing, it's super snappy, but a lot of it's muscle memory. But you can get the entire combo down in 8 seconds. Sorry, getting some to drink. And that's if you're slow. Like, you should be able to get this to pop. So, figure out a kill combo. That's my only real advice for this, aside from like the several tiers of build. But every weapon has something like this. Some where it's crit chance, crit damage, faction damage. Galvanized shot is the meta, or the galvanized damage, galvanized multi-shot. Obviously, pistols have the crosshairs, right? And with Avenger, you get the oranges. Then you go pure. You'll do 2 elemental mods. For this, it's viral, because if you're doing a disruption run and you're doing a level cap, every Demolist is fully stripped and primed until you start like getting like like the Fellarks and the Fenmore. I don't think you need to. I've never done a level cap disruption with the Fenmore. Actually, that's not true. Yes, I have. Yeah, no, I did that with that. But those are like slightly different setups due to the nature of the weapons. But you still should be stripping. There's never a point where it hurts, right? Faction damage, and you go 2 elementals, no dots, that are the 75% bonus damage to whatever the Demolith's health pool is. And you just dump everything into that. If you're looking for like like rivens, like I have a riven for this. To be honest, I just stopped at a riven because this is a riven actually for the Dex Furus, where it has much nicer stats. But it was literally just a riven that I found that boosted the base damage on the Dex Furus so much. Because look, it's damage, electricity, puncture. Well, I was running corrosive heat on it anyway, so this took up the 60/60 electric mod. What was it, Jolt? That's what that took up, right? And I was able to run corrosive heat to bullet hose, and it worked out great. All of a sudden, I'm able to run around with a Dex Furus that can do steel path and is completely fine like an hour into a mission. So it just needed base damage, so I grabbed a bunch of stuff that increased the base damage, the physical damage, and the electric, so I could keep the corrosive weighting high. It worked out. Obviously, there's a better meta Riven, but that one did fine. It did what I needed to. But if you want to borrow this build, I highly recommend it. At least try it out once to see how potent it is. It is very strong because it's multipliers on multipliers. And I'm a big fan of that. But anyway, thank you for listening to this. That's enough about this weapon. It's mid, but here's how you boost it. If you really, really want to like show that guy that said this weapon was crap who's boss and do level cap with it. Anyway, there you go. Take it easy, guys.